We're live.
One of the things that I know we're going to talk about Lecrae coming up, and one of the things I found interesting about Lecrae, Snoop Dogg, LL Cool J, they're all on LinkedIn, and shout out to Black LinkedIn because Lecrae is actually a member of our group. That said, I don't see like very little celebrity or music artists actually posting on a regular. Snoop Dogg probably posts. He was posting really frequent last year, but this year he slowed down. And I wonder why management of these artists or these celebrities don't really encourage them to bring content to LinkedIn.
I think I could maybe chime in a little bit on that, right? So I've been blessed and fortunate to work in the management team for a few different artists. And so everybody, hey, if you don't know me, I'm Sharice. I've been a Grammy U mentor for a long time. I was raised backstage. My dad was a drummer in the for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Isley Brothers, and some other things. So I've been around music for a long time and been around artist managers for a long time. And I think, one, if you're working with a true artist, sometimes it can take a long, sometimes artists, not all, but many. And I'm a drummer and a Gemini, so I'm not like putting stuff on artists. But artists can be somewhat mercurial in their nature, right? And usually, I can't. Usually, I do believe though, if most artists, if they go public and say they're going to do something, then it'll come out. I think also, we're past the days of very heavy-handed labels. I'm blessed and fortunate to get to work with some dope label people. The Michelle Sanchez Boyce, who's the COO of Anthony Hamilton's my Music Box label at BMG, and many others. I'm not gonna go into everybody, but love y'all. Love my label peeps. Label peeps are often very business-minded, dogmatic, like very like straightforward. However, with the world of streaming and artists making more money or a lot of their money from touring, from merchandising, you don't see the same level of like whole album like sales the way it used to be. I think that a lot of artists are really working with teams that are smaller than most people would imagine, especially compared to the back in the day Motown machine. I remember the first time I was at an in-person meeting at Motown, and they really walked us through the machine, the system of houses. Most people have seen the Hitsville house, but they didn't know that Berry Gordy had actually bought several houses that made up this kind of Motown. Yeah, right. A complex, and they even had their own phone line system because of discrimination and Jim Crow. There were issues that the reason he ended up even having houses. There were issues with him having access to buy a commercial building as a Black man, Berry Gordy. So he ended up buying these houses and having them and they had their own phone line system. I can't remember why, but there was. But my point is that it was an entire machine behind the artist that came out of Motown. If there's an artist that has that level of machinery behind them, one from a label and happening today, I don't know who it is. I mean, because I haven't heard of them. And then two, the artists who do have machines, that they have the funding and that they've built on their own. A lot of times, like it's just a lot of work just to get the things to happen. A lot of things in the music industry are last minute, and usually not even necessarily from the artist side. It's just things that, like even today, I had a meeting come over, something I'm doing with some tour managers, and one of the bigger known production folks was like, "Hey, I'm in Saudi Arabia. We're doing this European tour. My time is not my own. And so it's just like, it's a different pace. And I think a lot of it,
Gotcha.
what they're doing is live and in the studio and so.
But the thing I would say about it is the traditional way of doing the music is, where the artist just like, oh, I just want to focus on that, and I don't have to focus on social media with it as well. Those days are over, because if you look at some of the successful artists, they're engaging with their fans online, and what happens is, the volume of what they do, it expands to another level when they drop something, or they're getting all these different other opportunities. You look at the difference between Beyonce and Rihanna. Rihanna was active online, right? And those deals came, and that audience is there. Beyonce has fans, don't get me wrong, but Beyonce will post here and there, and it's not her showing like her real, Beyonce. Like Rihanna was just regular, posting like a regular person, right? And the difference is like Justin Bieber, Selena, all these people that were posting, Chris Brown, they end up having a big audience, and it's enabled them to keep that fan base. So when their music does do, numbers, their fan base is spreading it out, and they're passing it on to other people as well. And it's just, it's that effect and different opportunities. We see what Rihanna is doing with the now the hair and I guess the not perfume, whatever she had going, the makeup line, and the different things, because those opportunities, when a company knows that you have an active, engaged audience, you have different opportunities now. So the people who just go and post and be like, oh, I'm getting ready to drop an album now, I'm going on tour, here and there, they're not engaged every day with their fan base. And those fans know that. The real ones that seeing when you're posting, they know everything about you. They're following your stories. They're doing all these the behind the scenes. This is what's made people grow with Justin Bieber. He's so active. Chris Brown, so active. They're just ready. Taylor Swift, they know everything. So it's not before where the record label would put out, all of these bios and send it out to the magazines, to the TV shows. And, you have to be active yourself now. And as an artist, these are the ones that's going to be able to take it to the next level. And it's just not about the content that you have in the sense of, your art, your music, and your talent. Being talented online can help you as well. And same thing what has gotten Lizzo to where she's at is, same thing. Lizzo would have just been a person, if Lizzo didn't have a social media account and she would have just had the hit, that would have been okay, but it wouldn't have taken her to the next level. And she was, because people got to see her as who she is. She didn't care. She would post her shots at the pool. She would do this, and it's whatever. So they bought into that. And most record labels now, they're seeing it. And when we say, and it's the same thing in Hollywood with some of the movie stars. What I noticed with being in the business and seeing it from the entertainment perspective, the big names like Angelina Jolie and all these other people, all these other movie stars, they never wanted to get online because they couldn't get that audience right away. And they wouldn't just want to go on there and show like they only have 150,000 followers, and nobody's liking their post because they're posting and ghosting, and they weren't engaged, and they didn't think they have to. Now they're really realizing they have to. That's why The Rock is so big. That's why Kevin Hart is so big. All these movie stars who are at that next level, they're posting and they're engaging with their fans. If you want to go, and remember I was telling y'all how Will Smith wouldn't fall off. Go online right now and look at every time he comes out that hotel and these events, how he's swamped. And that's because that's that fan base. Yeah?
I think that you made awesome points, Colin, and I have a question for you. And I also want to take what you said and throw it back to the person we were just talking about, like Wendy Williams. She, I think most people who are aware of her, they probably feel like they know her, and it may be way off for how she actually is. but the way she came with her content, the way she did her content, the way she did her shows, all of her shows, it made the people who were following her and watching her feel like they really knew her, right? And I think that I think Colin, you do a really great job on IG of like really like posting to your stories and this and that, and you're like really consistent. So I think a lot of people overthink social media and they overthink the content. You having been the Washington bureau chief for TMZ and having to be in the minute, like politics is like every day it changes. You can't plan it. You know, you think they're gonna go right, they go diagonal. And then with you being really consistent with your own social media, and those that are watching, if you don't know, look down below, you can see where you can follow Colin and see some of his very, very consistent content. Do you have any tips, for folks when it comes to like not overthinking it and just like pushing it out?
Yeah, and I would always say the number one thing what really helps you is if trying to look for like perfect videos and perfect photos, those are the ones that normally don't do well, honestly. It's the ones that you just do sporadically and just the moment, and you start doing it like that, becomes easier. And if you notice the way some of the platforms are doing, like they're going away from the ADHD type of videos where there's so much movement and stuff like that, versus you just doing it and talking and grabbing the phone and putting it in front of you and saying your thoughts. So even if it's education tips, how you do it and how you put it out there, right? Because they want you to feel comfortable and be able to post more. So when you get to doing that way, it becomes you who you are, and your audience starts understanding you. Remember, everybody gets engagement for specific things sometimes that you won't even know. It's like I always remember when doing photos back in the days of, in the paparazzi lifestyle, you never would know what photos are going to sell. You would think you have the perfect photo, A-list superstar, you get them glammed up, you get all that, and then you go and look at the magazines, it's crickets. And then you just go and shoot a one-off of somebody, just random photo. And next thing you know, you got the cover, you got all this is moving. So you just never know. And this is the same way content is now. It's content, whether it's just can be a video that you put up there for 7 seconds and you didn't even, your expectation of it was just like a filler. It was just something that you wanted to make sure that you put up for that day. And that's the one that took off. So, I hate always saying be consistent, but don't have expectations where this video is going to do X amount of views or you're going to get followers from that. Just do it, and it just don't look at it in that way, and you'll start seeing the numbers start coming, and you'll start finding your sweet spots, and you'll start learning what videos start doing well. And you're going to get better over time at it as well. And you're just the main thing is, and I will always say this, is you're building out a library of content, because we're at a time now where people go on a person's profile and they binge watch it. You see a video or something that you like about a person, and you go in that profile and you're going to go, let me see what else they got. What else? And before you know it, you're in that rabbit hole and you spent 10 minutes or 15 minutes on that person's. So it's almost like you watched an episode of something on Netflix, and it really can be like that. So just start building out your library of content. And then you can always go back and change up stuff. And then you see the ones that do good, and then you repost it again, shorten it, make it longer. And then your channel will start really popping.
And what about, because you're real consistent with the stories, and then you'll post a post, right? Yeah. Those are two different dynamics. And I think, again, it to keep it with like we were just talking about Wendy Williams and, how her whether Diddy was behind it or not, her leaving Hot 107, Hot 97, how that catapulted her. And when you see her show, you'll see like there are obviously things that were planned, which feels more like, okay, the posts. But then there were these off the moment things then that she would just, go and run with. Colin, like, what do you, for your own content, like when you are thinking, okay, story versus a post, which I'll be honest. Like for me, a post feels a little like marriage. Like it's like not, it's like, oh, am I committed to this information? Do I really want this on my page? And
right.
and then like it doesn't get if it doesn't get the engagement, like, oh, the numbers are gonna be low, all that. So
see, this is the thing, right? And this is what just think of it this way: the platforms reward you for participating a lot of times. So if you posting ghosts, like you post on Monday and then it doesn't do well, so all of a sudden you don't post for another 2 weeks, then you try to come back again and post it. They're just not going to push it out there, right? But when they see like you have a pattern of like you're putting out stories, you're posting, you're doing lives, you're going to start seeing it's rewarding you with one of those three are going to start popping. You're going to start getting more on your, more views on your stories or your lives, or your reels start doing well. And I would always say what helps you is you consistently start getting better. You start seeing, like, you find out what works. You'd be like, oh, I can post a little bit about this person, or I could tell a story about this, and I can make it 8 seconds versus I sat out there and I rambled right away, and I came right out with the content immediately. The number one thing is, and this is for anything, it's just like you have to have whatever your caption is. It has to match what you come out with as well. So if I say, if my title says, Diddy got Wendy Williams fired, is that right? As soon as I come out, that first 3 seconds on my video is, Wendy Williams overcame Diddy by getting fired, and then she went on to, so now I'm feeding.
Wait, you're not introducing yourself first? You're not saying 10G. Hi, this is 10G. You're not saying
right.
that?
No, right. I'm not giving that introduction. I'm going right into the meat and potatoes. So and people don't want the fluff nowadays. They're scrolling right past it. So as soon as you come in and just boom,
you got 1, 2, 3.
And then you got the value, and then you got the, however, you got to remember, you can tell a story in 10, 12 seconds. And it doesn't matter. And then you start seeing what works and how it does. They start chopping up. You're doing 20 seconds. Maybe it's like 45 seconds or 50. And then you'll start seeing your audience grow as well.
I feel like that's what Kendrick did. With Kendrick with his song. That's what he did. As soon as you went in, as soon as he came in, you're like, boom. He didn't set it up. He just started hitting from the first syllable. Besides
they're not giving They're not giving any loops and the hooks and all that stuff from the beginning. You going straight. You got to grab attention right away.
What did our boy? What's the name from Death Row said? He said nobody dancing in that video. No producer.
Good night.
It's lyric, and the lyric has to hit from the first 30. 3 seconds. That lyric has to pop.
And that's how your content is now. And I think a lot of people have good content, but it doesn't get discovered because you take too long to get into it. And if your first words, Matt, are like hooks, and people think you just have to have a hook in the title. Your word, everything is just remember, it's text, it's voice, and then it's action. So any of those 3 things can pop. But when you do them all together, it really works. And then having a good hook and actually performing with the hook is exactly what you're saying, and let people stay on there. That's going to get the algorithm to really push your content and finding out what people really like about what you're saying. And then you double down on it. I have people and I have clients, and I'll be like, yo, this is working. You just saw, let's just say you normally get 1,500 views, and then all of a sudden this one did 12,000 views, and you want to go talk about something else your next 3 videos. No, keep pounding this type of style and this information until they get tired of it.
Thank you.
And then
thank you for that.
growing.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna tell one of my clients today, because she went viral somewhat on YouTube for leaving a comment. She took my advice about, I have this thing, we should be commenting, not these word facts or like that's awesome or pray for you. If somebody lost a family member, I believe rest in peace those days are over. It's rest and power. And it's also giving some type of acknowledgement to the pain that that person is going through, besides you're in my thoughts and prayers. So if you're leaving a comment, authentically, that's what she did. The person posted the comment to the top of their comment section, and now she gained 20 new subscribers, and she did a video based on her comment. To your point, I'm gonna tell her today, go back. She uses it was a video of the young daughter of a woman being arrested, screaming at the cops. She talked about adverse childhood experiences. So ACE is as a category. You'll see the children pop up that have adverse childhood experiences. And she was explaining to people, this is exactly how that presents. It's not her being disrespectful. It's not her, it's trauma and there's a title for it. But most people don't even know what ACE is. So now I'm gonna go back to her based on your advice, Tenji, and tell her, hey, do another video discussing what ACE is, because you mentioned it and you use it in your title, use it in the description, but most of us don't. We've never, we haven't been to a child psychologist or a school psychologist, and we don't know what ACE really means. And you say it in your comments, it presents itself. How? So she could do a video of what is ACE. She could do a video on how it presents itself and have examples, throughout our history.
But you know what though? Even with that Ace Martin, how she got to come out with it, right? This is the thing too. She has to pique people's curiosity in a sense of that title has to be something like, why this acronym ACE has saved 8,000 people, or something. So it makes somebody, right. And then she can go and talk about it however she wants, but to make people click on it,
right.
She has to pique them into what ACE is.
It's almost like those flash mob of kids that show up and they do damaging things. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys saw this in the news yesterday. It started viral. A husband and wife were walking through a neighborhood in Chicago as gentrifiers, and they got accosted, and unfortunately, that led to a miscarriage. So that conversation of it's just starting to bubble up now about people being in people's neighborhood, and but the people that accosted them, they were teenagers under the age of 17, and they were like, "You don't belong in our neighborhood." So that's Trump, and some of the language they used wasn't N-word or wasn't C-word or anything like that, but it was the language they used. You could tell that's a person who's lived through trauma, and they see you show up. So to your point, this ACE has shown up in different areas. So she mentions the concept of we'll see ACE through flash mobs, or we'll see ACE through gang behavior. And it's like, because, did I tell you about Will.i.am? I told you, Tan, but real quick, Will.i.am got jumped into a gang. The lady his mom came and knocked on her door and said, I forget his mother's name, but Will.i.am is half.
You have to say who Will.i.am is. Who is Will.i.am?
Yeah. Will.i.am, lead singer of the Black, no, it's kidding. But Will.i.am is a lead singer for the Black Eyed Peas. And he's also a tech founder. He's also building out AI called Felicia. So I love it. So anyway, Will was telling this experience on this show called Drink Champs. That's a YouTube channel. And he was saying he got jumped into it. They came to him and they said, yo, we need you to be in a gang. So he was 14. He said, all right, well, okay. He got jumped in. Next door neighbor knocks on the mother's door and said, forget his mother's name, but hey, they're jumping Will in. They're jumping Will in. So she went over there. He got jumped in. She said, okay, now jump him out. And they jumped. So he got jumped in and jumped out. When he went home, his mother was like, yo, what the F, But that trauma, he discusses it in a humorous story. But I just sat there traumatized thinking like, yo, you got, because I know my mother would have asked. So like, he got beat up 3 times that day. that's ACE, how Will.i.am presents his ACE, and it's like, so yeah, I got what you're saying too.
I think a lot of people don't really know how dope Will.i.am really is, and how strong he is.
Michael Jackson and Prince don't knew though. Michael Jackson and Prince both knew how dope he was. He performed with both of them, which is that part. I don't know that many artists. I know Usher and Chris can dance and stuff, but I'm just gonna say.
So that's a great example of first of all, it says a lot about his mom, like how she handled it, right?
She did. The neighbor wanted to go to her and tell her. Like the neighbors, like some people, like I ain't gonna tell his mom. His mom will go off. You know what I mean? We will try to protect the child by not letting the parent get involved because their parent's gonna go take it to 10x.
Exactly, it's gonna be like out of control completely, right? But yeah, for her to say, no, I think what we're gonna do, you're gonna jump him out. That part, to have even a point of view, like I can control this, I can affect this. Like so there's no like victimhood,
right? And the gang said, okay, like they have no part of moms.
And it also shows, I think, how he was obviously, of course, affected by her. He has a very proactive stance towards things. When I worked at Coke, I was blessed to be in a huge, not just me, but a huge meeting, a lot of people with him. And he was talking about like, he had just signed on to do this EcoC thing, which was Coke spelled backwards, but it was this recycling initiative for climate change. And he talked about meetings that he had been in. He didn't say the names, but meetings about technology that was coming our way. This is before wearables, before like when I say wearables, I mean smartwatches and things like that. Yeah. But he told us that, he had seen these things that were coming in meetings, like real meetings. And so I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I hope Will.i.am, if you somehow ever end up seeing this or anyone in his team, I think the culture, we need to hear more from him. We need to hear more from our thinkers who have been raised like his mom. Said, oh, you jumped my son into a gang? Okay, well, we're not victims. Now I need you to jump him out. And I think that's a great example of how even him telling that story, him leveraging that, what could be trauma, to tell it from an empowering standpoint. And to say, okay, well, you don't have to just lay in it. We should probably jump into Lecrae here soon.
So that 10G can...
Huh?
Yeah, I said so. 10G can make sure he gets his appointment.
Yeah. So that we don't mess that up.
Breaking news though! Breaking news: Steve Bannon was ordered to jail. 7-1. He has to appear. Yep.
Wow.
That just happened.
He has to report to jail on
7-1 on July 1st.
Wow.
4 months sentence. 4 months.
Recently, I don't know if I told you this. Recently, he asked me to come on his podcast.
No. No. You got to set that up. You can't just drop it like that. That's a bomb. That's as big as saying Stephen Miller asked you to retweet something.
Asked me about, yeah.
Or MTV wants to sit down with you. Yeah, put your glasses up that way. Hey, you should do it before he goes to jail, so you can flip the script, turn it on him. Hey, Steve, I know what I want. You know how you do? Because let me tell y'all, this is how 10G moves. So if you want to learn something about content creation, 10G will switch the table all the time. What he does say, he always says, like pastors say, just one more thing, or like Columbo. I just have one question, and that one question turns into 15.
But sometimes that last one is where the real source is at. So I would have never got to the real source if I don't ask that last question.
And the last one after that, last after that. Yeah.
Until they just say no. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when they say no, you just like, okay.
Yeah. I told you early on. I told you the one thing I learned. One thing I learned about being reporter, whatever you want to call it, being a good journalist.
A journalist. You're a journalist, Negro. Yeah. You're a journalist.
I'm a street video guy, right? And I used to have I used to have a home run question, right? And then that was it. And then, it'd be okay, you didn't have good questions until, I remember Harvey telling me Harvey, who owns TMZ's the big guy, and he would always say, he was like, Colin, he said, you got a real good question in the beginning. He said, but you don't have that second and third question, and that's where the real money is at. So you better start getting on top of your second and third. Yeah, gotta have that follow up. Yeah.
He was walking around the table like in that movie with Sean Connery and Al Capone. He was walking around the table with a bat. You know what, Colin? You don't have to follow up, Colin. Colin, like, yeah, you're right, boss.
You're right. You want another raise?
You want 2 and 3 more follows up.
That's a good tip, though. Like, go deeper.
Definitely. That
makes me think of
one of the best things I learned. That and one other thing about being a great listener when you interviewing someone and listening what they're saying. Because I remember, I don't know if you know what is she? Her name is Jane Goodell, and she's like a bit. I forget what you call her, but she was inspired. And I was asking her about Michael Jackson because she did. She deals a lot with the chimpanzees and stuff like that. And I had my one good question, my Super Bowl question, right? And she was answering it. And in between me not listening, she actually said like Michael Jackson was abusive to the chimpanzees. So instead of me following up and going, I didn't even hear her because I just had my next question without listening to her response.
Right.
So I missed a great opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So always remember, be listening when you have that. You just don't go right into that second question after either. You have to listen to their response.
Active.
Or that saved you because you didn't go down in history as a guy that outed Michael Jackson for being abusive to animals. So thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
That part.
Let that be somebody else.
Yeah,
so,
it was. Hold on, it was the chimpanzee. But what was his Bubbles? It was Bubbles she was talking about. She said he abused Bubbles.
You missed it, Colin. You missed it.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, speaking of, I guess like the things that are kind of like the opposite of abuse, I think, and Lecrae was like, no, don't come at me with that. Like, that's not the word, and don't do that. Don't do that to me. And I was like, wow. Like, I was really like, but he wasn't mean, and he wasn't outrageous about it.
Like, he's just like, yo, hold that thought.
Yeah.
And then walked away.
Yeah, pretty much.
And never
yeah.
coming back. Yeah.
So some of the things I think, just from like watching his career, like a lot of people, they don't know that this man has 4 Grammys, 4, like as a rapper, as hip hop, right? Like there was so much before where people, it was like, would rappers even get a Grammy? I remember when Lauryn Hill got a Grammy as a hip hop artist way, way back in the day. Like that was a huge deal. And so this man has 4 Grammys. I've been blessed to like meet and work, meet at the Reach Records headquarters in his studio for some things so anyway, it doesn't even matter. But I was blessed to do there for another artist. We were talking to his team about some things for Anthony Hamilton and the Hamiltones, and I was stunned at like just how nice the headquarters was, how nice the studio was, like how dope all the producers. I've been to a lot of studios. I used to grow up roller skating as my dad in LA and Babyface were inside of this Lugosa Record Studios a million years ago. And, I've just been around a lot of studios, and this man is quietly building his business, making deals like in regular business, real estate, offline. And I just think that it's a great example of you don't have to use ratchetness. You don't have to use battles. You can be, like you said earlier, Colin, I think Lecrae is a great example of being consistent. He's a great example of being diverse. He has songs that sound like many different types of rap genres, and speaking softly and carrying a big stick. He is not out here just grandiosity, but doing the work and doing it consistently and serving his audience. And there it is, the Grammys and the receipts to show for it. What do you like, Martin? You sound like you. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I was wondering. Well, I don't know a lot about Lecrae, but I know he's been influential, and I'm not just gonna say he's a Christian rapper. But what I never really understood is like with his success and what he's been able to achieve at that level, like why haven't so many other rappers that you do his style used his same formula? Is it hard to duplicate? Like why? Because we should be seeing a lot more of like he's giving them the blueprint. No. And I don't see nobody else running with it.
No, because so in like I think you said you don't want to call him a Christian rapper. We'll say in the East Coast, rap, or we'll say in West Coast rap, you have what you just said. You have a blueprint that either Rockefeller, took from somebody else.
Like gangster rap. Well, West Coast did what NWA did with gangster rap.
But so a couple things for me at least. I lived in Houston in 3rd Ward. I was shocked that in 3rd Ward in TSU, they would pump Lecrae. Like I would hear cars. It was the first city I went into where I was like, who's this, Christian rapper that they're pumping and like bouncing, like the cars are bouncing with the, what's in it? And then I would go to the chicken spot that everybody goes to in Houston. They were playing Lecrae. Yeah, I went to this cafe. I went to this black-owned cafe down the street from one of the oldest black radio stations. They were playing Lecrae, bro. So I'm saying, right. But at that time, he was on tour, not on a tour, but like on a hood city type of tour. I'm gonna show up at this spot. I'm gonna show up at that spot, and he was doing mixtapes. He had put out his first.
He was feeding the streets.
Which is what Master P did, right? Remember Master P? Why he did it? He had the movies. He had this. He had that. He had that.
But look though, they followed. But when Master P did it, didn't you see? What's the name of them? Master P did it with No Limit, Cash Money. So the other people followed that formula though.
So here's the difference to me, because I listened to everything Lecrae made except the last 2 albums. It was also, he was coming out at the same time that E.T. was coming out, or similar to me. Eric Thomas, the motivational speaker, and Lecrae, they kind of crossed the genres. And at that point on Twitter, to your point earlier about being on social media and being in the culture, quote unquote, but not the culture of rap, but the psychic, the culture of people. A lot of, to me, artists, they're artists, they're creatives. They're not tapped into the general culture of what's happening. Lecrae and E.T. had it, to your point earlier, he had Thank God It's Monday. And he would do a video every Monday. Lecrae would pop up somewhere at a club or do something in real life that promoted that mixtape. So he wouldn't stay indoors. He would go to the hood. And actually, there's a couple of, strip play, Magic City. They played Lecrae. So it's like, and his thing wasn't because I want to be known in the streets. His thing was that I am the streets. These are the people I should be preaching to. My music shouldn't inspire drug dealers to put. He says it in one of the songs. If somebody is dealing drugs and they hear Lecrae and it's inspired them to put down, that's good. I've done my job. My job is not to be in the pulpit and to like sit back and wait for you to come to me. I need to go to the streets. That's everywhere. The guys drinking lean, the rest of it. And he would talk about that. And he was the only Christian rapper that I ever saw at that point to really say, I'm going to go to the people who actually listen and I can inspire, and I'm not going to wait for them to come to me. And then he put out another mixtape, and everybody in the streets, to me, accepted him as one of them and not just a Christian rapper. So I think today, now, you're starting to see some Christian artists go that path. It's taken 10 years or 12, what has it been, 10 or 12 years? Because I'm going back to 2010. I don't think that, to Teresa's point earlier, artist management, labels, blah, blah, blah. Lecrae, for a long time, I don't know if he's attached to a label now, but he was independent. He was like, I'm not, yo. And they were saying, oh, you should have took a deal. You'll never get this. Remember the first time he got the Grammy? Was that the first or second time when he made that speech that he was like, This is for all the people that told me I had to take a deal, that told me I would never get to this level. Like you could tell, but you hear it in his music too. So he's passionate, but passionate with a purpose. And at the same time, to your point, Tim, to your question, it's a very, you don't see independent thinkers like him, like Tupac, Nas, Eminem. You don't see them come up. It's not as hard to copy that. Even with the Kendrick versus Drake thing, it's hard. You can't just hire somebody off Twitter and make a good diss. Right. It has to be inside you. You have to be. Yo, I've seen white people crip walk into not like us. Like I've never seen like I don't care, Snoop, AZE, they feel it, but whatever Kendrick put, whatever sauce, whatever smoked paprika he put in that song.
I'm telling you, the hook.
It is hit.
The hook. It's never been a real good diss hip hop song that had a hook that made people feel like they're part of that song. So anytime, and it's just like this. Anytime you're trying to do content and you make people feel like you're speaking to them with that pops, and it just to
that point. Bring it back to Lecrae. To your point, a kid from New Jersey who was a grown ASS man at 37 or 40, I felt what this 16 or 17-year-old felt when he was homeless in Houston. Lecrae made me feel like he was speaking to me and my experience as a nerd, as a sci-fi, selling computers, hand in hand, so to speak. I wasn't selling weight, but I was selling computers hand in hand. I felt like, it took me back to when I was knocking on doors and selling computers, and Lecrae was trying to get people to listen to music. Like, he spoke to me. So a good pastor, you think that pastor's message is for you. His message was general. And everybody in the congregation, man, how'd you know? I was thinking the same thing. And we all collectively are thinking. But that, I will say, to answer your question, the reason why you don't see a whole bunch of Lecrae's is because while they may have the template, they're not Lecrae.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. I'm just real quick, Sharif. It was saying that, like, even me, I'm getting ready to go back to like my content, just like making people feel like I'm specifically talking to them or what I've been through to see, and people can live vicariously through your experiences as well. And I think that's one of the best pieces of content. And I know every time this is the first thing I do when I get new clients to speak to them. I always ask them to write down their favorite content creators that's in their industry and who, they would like their page or, whatever their branding to emulate, like they like their styles. And then when they tell it to me, and I'll ask them, like, what makes you really like this, profile on this person? They always say, I've watched this person grow. And I've seen, so it's like they've lived through that growth, that up and down. And that's when you can make content like that and make people feel a part of it. You're gonna really pop.
That's what's up.
Yeah, and I think like when it comes to Lecrae, so a few things. One, I think there's transparency, there's authenticity, relationships, and the ways you see that, right? Like you were saying, Martin, when he goes and he's talking about like the street life and the gang life, even though media would like to at times, or finds itself perhaps not from not being led by mostly Black and brown people, seeing, just maybe a peak of Black and brown culture, media turns around and portrays that peak as if that's who we are, as if, kids are in the hood, like just, like really, I think one of, a famous ex-first lady said, they're predators, right? These young people who end up in the street life and gang life. Lecrae talked on Billy Graham's platform about how he was raised by a single mother, and that he had these uncles who were heavily involved in gangs, and that he wanted to be like his uncles, and that he even wanted every tattoo that his uncles had. Like, I don't even think I've ever seen somebody have a tattoo that I want on my body. I'm like, oh, well, that's taken, that's theirs. But so to be that bought into someone and you love this person so much, right? And he has been around gangs. He's lived what is true for a lot of Black and brown kids, whether you're in the suburbs or in the hood. You have that relative that you love, that you care for, or you've been exposed to things, and you eventually have to make up a choice. Do you want to do what the streets say is cool and the quick way to make money, or do you want to take this other path over there? And since he grew up with these uncles he adored being in gang life, he can actually speak authentically to where a lot of kids are. And you hear it in his lyrics. He didn't become, I think in the early days, you're right, Martin, the early days of Christian rap and Christian hip hop, it was just Jesus, 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 God, God, God. And I am here for that all day. This girl is. But it didn't necessarily make it relevant for everyone who wasn't already there yet. And in Lecrae's music, you hear him say, I'm going to talk about it. He says, they don't talk about the strain. They don't talk about the strain. They don't talk about the struggle, how they turned to the Lord when they was in trouble. They don't talk about how everybody snitched when they're in a jam. Like, he has these real experiences from growing up in street life, and is like, I'm gonna talk about it. You know, it's that's from his song Say I Won't. But he's like, no, I'm gonna be honest. And I think the rest of hip hop is, especially with this Diddy thing, starting to catch up with where Lecrae has been for a long time. And like, no, let's talk about what's really inside of those streets. Let's talk about what's really, you know, with that. So I think there's his transparency. His relationships, like, yes, he grew up in Houston, and then he, you know, moved to Atlanta, where his label that his label Reach Records, which is now an imprint on Columbia Records. But you're right, he came up without a deal, and everybody said he couldn't do it, you know. And then you get to a point where you need some infrastructure and system, so he, you know, got Reach Records, and they work with Columbia. But when he came from Houston to Atlanta, he didn't just come, him and his wife, like, they came with a whole crew of Christians, and that he still rocks with, that he still worships with, that he still does business offline with. And so that's how, you know, we can see that he's rolling in his personal life, Lecrae. So imagine how he's rolling with his, you know, like, actual business. And so I think relationships is there. And then authenticity. Like, Trip Lee is a dope rapper on Reach Records. A lot of people don't know well, they might not know, Trip Lee is also an actual pastor of an actual church. You know what I mean? Like, Lecrae has given messages, like, at actual churches. Like, that moment I mentioned, you know, when I was fortunate to be talking to him and one of his really good friends, and they came with some, like, old school timey religious speak, and he was like, I roll with the word. Like, there were no cameras, there were no, I'm not even sure Lecrae knew exactly what I did. He had any connection really to music. This was an informal, you know, conversation. So there's that authenticity, and we see rappers get blown up all the time because they present this persona. It happened with Vanilla Ice. You know, Eminem gets a lot of credibility because even though he talked about having a hard childhood, he didn't try to claim that he was somebody's pimp, gangster, you know, rap, like, gang guy. He had his hard trailer park life, and he was authentic about that. And so I think that those three things serve Lecrae's content really well. But he's also consistent. Like, Colin, you were talking earlier about engaging, and that man is like, the tweets are coming out. And sometimes it's a really vulnerable thing, like some kind of failure that he thinks he's had. So
that's good. Good session. Good podcast.
Yeah,
I love
good
it.
episode. Good episode.
Yeah.
Shout out to us.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to keep being consistent and bringing it to y'all. And next week we will dig into a bit of there's a whole new level that's happened with this Kendrick Lamar thing. So y'all jump in with us if you have questions or thoughts.
And also, I would let's talk about Rihanna and these deals she's getting and why she's getting these deals and why content is creating so much of her billion-dollar empire that she's creating.
Amen.
That part. Let's do it. Thanks for jumping in and rocking with us, everybody. Thank you.